Hi, I'm Scott Osterweil. I'm the creative director of the MIT Education Arcade, and today I'm speaking with Malcolm Bauer from the Educational Testing Service. So the question is, what is an assessment?
Good question. An assessment, from my perspective, is a method or a process of taking data, observations, and making some inferences to support a claim, usually for educational measurement, about what people think and can do. That could be a formal test. That'd be one instrument of collecting data and then having a measurement model to draw inferences from the responses. Or it just could be a teacher observing students in the classroom and making inferences from the collective behaviors of the classroom. Could be someone watching a dance recital and scoring it. So there's really a wide range of ways that process could be carried out, but it really is taking observations and making inferences about something useful educationally. I mean, there are many purposes of assessment. So if the process is making inferences, useful inferences from data, you can do that for many purposes. So you can do that for helping to improve student learning directly in the classroom. That would be a kind of formative assessment. You could certify someone's knowledge, like if you're doing it for a medical doctor or a plumber or anyone, you're saying someone is qualified to do this kind of job. That's a very different purpose. And the kinds of claims and the method used to support those claims are very different in each of those cases. So a teacher in the classroom who is going to make an educational adjustment might have a very different method of making those inferences to make those decisions than someone who's saying, yes, you are legal to perform surgery.
How would you characterize the current state of assessment?
The field is good at assessing some kinds of things. There's been a focus for the past many years operationally on summative assessments of individuals, let's say for K-12 assessments, as well as aggregating up to, let's say, state level for specific kinds of skills, especially as defined by educational standards. We're good at measuring some of those and not others, and as standards expand and there's a desire for kids to be able to think in different ways and to know different things. We've expanded those standards and have even higher expectations now for assessment. And I think we're beginning to push the limits of what we know, but I think a lot of research is going on. The field is moving forward to meet those needs. And so looking at not just the results of what people do to infer what they know and what their processes are, but looking at a sequence of actions they take or a sequence of things they say, like a conversation, to make inferences about, much richer inferences about the nature of their kinds of reasoning is something that is a field of active research right now. There's a demand for new things to be assessed from our educational systems. There is a dramatic improvement in the kinds of technology that allow us to record what kids say, what they do, so we can make inferences from a larger range of data. And there's also, on the research side, there are new mathematical models. There's a joining of the psychology, the cognitive psychology, about what we can say about how people think, to the psychometrics, how to make inferences from the data to push all of that forward.
What specific changes do you see occurring as a result of technological change? So
if assessment is making inferences from data, and the data is behaviors, things that students say or do, we need to in some way record that so that we can make those inferences. And I think technology is beginning to be able to do that in a way that is not yet seamless, but is pushing in that direction. Historically, you have a teacher just making observations, maybe taking some notes, giving a quiz every week. But if kids are using technology, tablets or something for a variety of activities throughout the week, and we're recording all that, there's suddenly a much larger bandwidth of information to make use of. Another aspect is that it can be it's adaptive. So instead of having one teacher to many students, the technology can adapt to individuals. You can have differentiated instruction in a way that's very different than the typical one teacher, many student model has been.
What role do you see games and technology in shaping the next generation of assessments?
So I think there are a lot of roles. One of them is having a wider bandwidth of data, just collecting a richer set of actions, not just response to given questions on a quiz, for example, but all kinds of ways of interacting with representations and activities, and then having a more of a time sequence. So not just one time point or once a week sampling that, but really having that throughout a day. So that's on the data side. There's more behaviors being collected. There's a lot of other factors like that too, how engaged, the depth of engagement, the kinds of thinking they're doing. But the kinds of design features that game designers have put in games, when they're tied to, aligned with the learning strategies and the kinds of evidence we need to make inferences about what kids are doing so we can provide the right kind of feedback, provide a potentially very powerful combination for improving learning in the classroom. I think important features of game-based formative assessments are ones in which the learning and the game mechanics are very closely aligned. One reason for that is that you can make an efficiency argument, that you're not just, there's some learning and then there's some fun. There's more learning, there's more fun. You really want to have the two totally intertwined where it's very engaging and you're learning a lot all at the same time, because otherwise, kids are going to skip over sections, or they'll disengage. Kids are smart. They will not be engaged for those middle pieces that are not as fun to them. And the assessment piece also has to be aligned with that as well. And one way to do that is to have a very clearly defined learning goal. Like, for example, a learning progression that defines a natural sequence or network of states of understanding that kids go through. I mean, not everyone goes through the same sequence, but you've captured maybe 80 to 90% of the different kinds of learning that kids naturally will go through. You would combine that with a good game mechanic, set of things that really pull you through those states. So things like levels and bosses, if you're using that for the game design, would naturally align with certain kinds of states. Those are that's a very simple cursory level for aligning things. But they're at a much lower level, the kinds of strategies, like if you're doing discovery learning for argumentation, there are certain genres of games that very naturally match to that, and others that are not. And so having someone that really knows the richness of game design and someone that knows the richness of learning and the richness of assessment to make those really careful connections, I think, are very much needed.
What's missing, if anything, from the current conversation around the next generation of assessment?
Formative assessment, frankly, as seeing assessment as a process rather than as an instrument, a thing. And seeing that as just part of the natural way that teachers teach and students learn, and making use of that, the data, the behaviors in the classroom for improving learning. And so that's really a whole area that has been, certainly on the quantitative side, has not been addressed as much. And I think because of the potential for technology in the classroom, we have an opportunity to do that much more and much better, while still keeping the teacher and the students really the owners of the learning and the owners of that data potentially, because you wouldn't want to use that information for other kinds of claims, like certifying someone's knowledge within the year, because, for example, then they may not feel as free to fail.
So formative assessment needs to be a tool that teachers and students almost use together in the way that they think about the progression in the classroom.
Yeah, so teachers and students should use that together. And there are studies that even support that kind of thing pretty strongly. So, for example, if you provide to students and their parents a report that has comments about things that students might improve upon, as well as a grade, a number, they pay more attention to the number than do about what they could do next. If you just take the grade off and just include all those comments that are helpful about things they should think about and focus on and improve, they pay much more attention to that. They get much more out of that. So simply by having that grade, you're changing the way people use the data, the information about themselves and about what they've done.